Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrita Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nastapreshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Tamashloke Bhaktir Babadinaishtaki. Hare Krishna. Naranga Prema Das, Divya Singha Das, Padmamukha Jagannath Das, Lita Priya Devi Dasi. Hare Krishna.
Don't be frightened of this big crowd.
No, I'm more frightened of small crowds, big crowds. Yes, maybe I should sit closer. It makes it nice. I'll zoom in. We can all come in. True that. Jai. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter number 24, the song sung by Lord Shiva, text number 34. This is considered one of the more important chapters of the Bhagavatam. Very important chapter of the Bhagavatam. So we'll chant the verse. Nama Pankaja Nabhaya Bhuta Shukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kutastaya Swarochise Nama Pankaja Nabhaya Bhuta Shukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kutastaya Swarochise Nama Pankaja Nabhaya Bhuta Shukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kutastaya Swarochise Nama Pankaja Nabhaya Bhuta Shukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kutastaya Swarochise Nama Pankaja Nabhaya Bhuta Shukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kutastaya Swarochise
Nama Pankaja Nabhaya
Nama Pankaja Nabhaya Bhuta Shukshmendriyatmane
Vasudevaya Shantaya
Vasudevaya Shantaya
Kutastaya Swarochise
Kutastaya Swarochise Nama Pankaja Nabhaya Bhuta Shukshmendriyatmane Vasudevaya Shantaya Kutastaya Swarochise. Okay, word for word. Namaha. All obeisances unto you. Pankaja Nabhaya unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
unto the Supreme Personality of God,
from whose navel the lotus flower emanates.
from whose navel the lotus flower emanates.
Bhuta Shukshma, the sense objects.
Sense objects.
Indriya,
Indriya,
the senses. Atmane, the origin.
the origin.
Vasudevaya,
Vasudevaya,
unto Lord Vasudev.
unto Lord Vasudeva.
Shantaya,
Shantaya,
always peaceful.
always peaceful.
Kutashtaya,
Kutastaya,
without being changed.
without being changed.
Swarochise,
Swarochise,
unto the supreme illumination.
unto the supreme illumination.
Translation. My dear Lord, you are is Lord Shiva speaking. My dear Lord, you are the origin of the creation by virtue of the lotus flower which sprouts from your navel. You are the supreme controller of the senses and the sense objects, and you are also the all-pervading Vasudeva. You are most peaceful, and because of your self-illuminated existence, you are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformations. Please repeat. My Lord,
My Lord,
you are the origin of the creation
you are the origin of the creation
by virtue of the lotus flower
by virtue of the lotus flower
which sprouts from your navel.
which sprouts from your navel.
You are the supreme controller of the senses
You are the supreme controller of the senses
and the sense objects,
and the sense objects.
and you are also the all-pervading Vasudeva.
And you are also the all-pervading Vasudeva.
You are most peaceful,
You are most peaceful,
and because of your self-illuminated existence,
and because of your self-illuminated existence,
you are not disturbed by the 6 kinds of transformations.
you are not disturbed by 6 kinds of transformation.
Purport. The Lord as Garbhadakshayi Vishnu lies in the ocean of Garbha within this universe, and from his navel the lotus flower sprouts. Lord Brahma is generated from that lotus flower, and from Lord Brahma the creation of this material world begins. As such, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Garbhadakshayi Vishnu, is the origin of the material senses and sense objects. Since Lord Shiva considers himself to be one of the products of the material world, his senses are under the control of the Supreme Creator. The Supreme Lord is also known as Hrishikesh, Master of the Senses, which indicates that our senses and sense objects are formed by the Supreme Lord. As such, he can control our senses and out of his mercy engage them in the service of the Master of the Senses. In the conditioned state, the living entity struggles in this material world and engages his senses for material satisfaction. However, if the living entity is graced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can engage these various senses in the service of the Lord. Lord Shiva desires not to be misled by the material senses, but to engage always in the service of the Lord without being subject to contamination by materialistic influences. By the grace and help of Lord Vasudeva, who is all-pervading, one can engage his senses in devotional service without deviation, just as the Lord acts without deviation. The word Shantaya, Kutastaya, Swarochise are very significant. Although the Lord is within this material world, he is not disturbed by the waves of material existence. However, conditioned souls are agitated by 6 kinds of transformations. Namely, they become agitated when they are hungry, when they are thirsty, when they are aggrieved, when they are illusioned, when they grow old, and when they are on the deathbed. Although conditioned souls become very easily illusioned by these conditions in the material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the Supersoul Vasudeva, is never agitated by these transformations. Therefore, it is said here, Kutastaya, that he is always peaceful and devoid of agitation because of his prowess, which is described herein as Swarochise, indicating that he is illuminated by his own transcendental position. In other words, the individual soul, although within the illumination of the Supreme, sometimes falls down from that illumination because of his teeny position. And when he falls down, he enters into material conditional life. The Lord, however, is not subject to such conditioning. Therefore, he is described as self-illuminated. Consequently, any conditioned soul within this material universe can remain completely perfect when he is under the protection of Vasudeva, or when he is engaged in devotional service. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurue Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagadatam Sagana Ragadatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishubhanu Shuti Devi Pranamami Haripriye Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhana Namane Shesha Klesha Nashaya Parmananda Daine Vancha kalpatarabhischa kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namaste Jivanandaya Dasaya Vanacharine Prabhupada Vallabhaya Singhasila Vinurine Agyana Dvanta Gamanam Pashtita Patitatmanam Gyana Gurute Chitarine Chakshashe Nama Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastatade Shatari. Alrighty. Yeah. Generally most of the time who's at class. Generally that's who's at class, but it's really small today. What do you think of Gorni tie? What do you think of Gorni tie? So let's try to focus here. Serious stuff to say here. So everything comes from Krishna, right? This is the basic principle of God. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvabhavartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service with determination. With loving determination. So many people don't actually know what God is. A lot of people believe in God. Oh, I believe in God. You have people on the street, generally they believe in God. In America, more people believe in God than not still. Actually, we're one of the more pious countries in that regard. Europeans, very much atheistic. A lot of atheism in Europe. You know, like in France, they did that whole mockery of the Last Supper, satanic mockery of the Last Supper. France used to be, used to call it the daughter of the church. The Catholic Church called France the daughter of the church because it was such a pious church country. But now so many people are atheistic in Europe because that's kind of taught there that this is a better and more progressive way of life without God consciousness. So I'm not saying that there are not theists there. I'm just saying that it's statistically more atheistic than America. People in America generally believe in God, but most of them don't have a clue what that actually means. What does it mean to believe in God? What is God? How do you define God? So the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ and the Latter-day Saints, they actually believe this. This is their belief. They believe that God became God by being exceptionally pious. And therefore he became God. And I'm not trying to be mean to them. This is what they believe. Then from that point on, he was able to have unlimited amounts of celestial wives and engage in celestial sexual enjoyment with them to produce many, many children. And from those children, they were sent to this earthly planet. And the two of those children, the two predominant children of God, Mormon God, are Jesus and Satan. And so Jesus and Satan got an argument as to what to do with the humans. And so then some people took Jesus' side, some people took Satan's side, and then there was a battle, and that's how their theology works. And that you, by being a good Mormon, can achieve godhood also. Get your own planet, have your own celestial wives. Exactly. So they call it God. They say the Heavenly Father, but they don't actually understand that that's not God. That can't be God because God can't become God. God is always God. Yeah, they're like essentially like Prajapati worshiping. Anyhow, needless to say, they have no understanding. They haven't been able to conceive. They haven't thought deep enough into the matter that God can't become God. God has to always be God. That's one aspect. Krishna's always been, always will be, forever and ever, to the end of time. The Catholic Church, they say, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be. Amen. That's the kingdom of God. So many people don't know what God is, and therefore they can't have any devotion to God. Without understanding who God is and what God is, one can't have devotion to God. What to speak of understanding Krishna? Because Krishna is saying in this verse, Aham sarvasya prabhavo. This is 10.8 of the Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvavartate. First thing to understand is, this is called the Chatra Sloki. This is the four quintessential verses of the Bhagavad Gita. One of the four quintessential verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is saying, I am the source of everything. And he's specifically referring to himself, Aham, I. So that defeats the Mayavadis. And this is one really rascal thing that I saw Mayavadis do. There's this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, very famous verse in the 9th chapter. I'm not sure I remember. I don't have it memorized. Aham kratur aham yagya, swada aham asadam, mantroham aham evadyam, aham agnir aham hutam. So they actually, when they recite this verse, I heard them do it just last weekend. Someone recited that verse to me and they said, Brahman kratur, Brahman yagya. They took out the aham. Rascals. They didn't want to say Krishna's. I am the ritual. I am the sacrifice. I am the offering to the ancestors. I am the healing herb. No, Brahman is the ritual. Brahman is the sacrifice. Because God forbid that he's a person. It can't be right. Krishna is saying, I am the ritual. I am the sacrifice. Krishna emphatically says so many times, Aham sarvasya prabhavo. I am the source of everything. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. Bhatta sarvabhavartate. Mata sarvabhavartate. Everything emanates from me. Mata sarvabhavartate. Iti matva bhajante mam. If you understand this, if you actually understand Krishna's position, Iti matva bhajante mam Buddha bhava samanvita. You worship me with your intelligence. Buddha bhava. You worship me. So unless we understand Krishna's position, Hare Krishna Lavanga, unless we understand Krishna's position, we don't have that impetus to worship Krishna. So if we're actually asking ourselves, why am I not more devoted? We can kind of understand, we can infer here that I don't have enough knowledge of God, because if I actually understood the significance and the relevance of God, if I understood Krishna's all-pervasiveness, if I understood Krishna's nature as the source of all that be, if I understood Krishna's position, I would have no problem in engaging in his devotional service. So this is why we have to understand Krishna. We have to gain knowledge of Krishna. And by that knowledge of Krishna, it becomes more and more clear why I should engage in devotional service. And it's easy to see this at the beginning because we have no knowledge. We come Om Jnana Tamarandasya. We're covered by darkness. We have no knowledge of anything. So then we meet the devotees, and the devotees begin to explain to us, what is God? Why should we worship Krishna? They begin to explain this place is not a place of enjoyment. This place is a place of suffering. Abrahma bhavana loka punarabhatinorjuna mamupetya takunteya punarjanma navidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest planet, all are places of suffering wherein repeated birth and death take place. But for one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, he never takes his birth again in this material world. So we're understanding these things. That makes sense. This world is full of suffering, and I can't enjoy it. So therefore, I think I'm going to take up this Krishna consciousness. We're convincing you to take up Krishna consciousness because I'm telling you right now, this world, it's a futile effort. So we're getting knowledge, and by that knowledge, it becomes easier and easier and easier to engage in devotional service. So at a certain point, we think, oh, I'm engaged in devotional service. I can slow down on my accumulation, on my devotion to understanding knowledge about Krishna. But when you understand the Shastras more and more, you develop this Shastrika Shraddha, this Shastric faith, then it becomes very easy to kind of maintain yourself in devotional service. Because I'm understanding. There's really nothing else. And we see that advanced devotees, they have no faith in Maya whatsoever. That's a symptom. I'm like Jivananda Prabhu Guru Maharaj. He has no faith in Maya. And you see it just totally bring up something that's Maya, there's no faith in it. How do you develop that lack of faith? One reason is you get smashed by Maya time and time again. But another reason is you hear, you have faith in your spiritual master, you hear and you understand the Shastras. So in a similar way, we have to understand Krishna's nature as God. So first and foremost, understanding what God is God is the source of everything, which is what Lord Shiva is saying here. You are the origin of the creation by virtue of the lotus flower which sprouts from your navel. People don't understand. Some people, in their eagerness to reject their birth religion, generally in this country, people are born Christian. I don't like Christianity. I'm going to become a Hindu. And so then they all of a sudden accept all these demigods, and they think, well, I'm a polytheist now. And they start worshiping demigods, not understanding that Krishna is the origin of all the demigods. Deva Deva, Krishna says. Deva Deva, I am the origin of all the demigods. I am the God of the demigods. All the devas are coming from Krishna. So from him, Lord Brahma arises from the lotus flower. So unless we understand this position of Krishna, it's very hard to become devoted to Krishna. And it is in understanding Krishna's position that we're liberated. Simply by understanding who Krishna is, we can become liberated. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vedi tatvata tvaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam eti sarjuna. One who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving his body, take his birth again, O son of Pritha, O Arjuna, but attains to my abode. So simply by understanding Krishna's nature of appearance and disappearance, his activities, we can go back home, back to Godhead. There's one pastime, Prabhupada's asking, why does Krishna appear? Why does Krishna appear? He doesn't have to appear to do that.
He appears for a living.
He appears to give pleasure to his devotees.
That's the one.
Yeah, but the idea is that Srila Prabhupada asked that question. And the devotees all said, Parjanaya saranam vinashaya judiskitam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. And all the Prabhupada said, Krishna doesn't have to appear to do any of those things. Krishna can wipe the demons out without appearing. Krishna can establish religion without coming. He can send a representative. Krishna can protect the devotees without appearing here in this world. But Krishna mainly appears to give pleasure to the devotees. And of course, Srila Prabhupada says that in the purport to that verse. So Krishna's main reason for appearing in this world is to give us pleasure. So Prabhupada said, and you have understood, therefore, no more birth, no more death for you, told that devotee. So, no more birth or death for Gauranga Prem. He's finished. So we have to understand Krishna. And you can continue on Lord Shiva's statement. He says, you are the supreme controller of the senses and the sense objects. You are the all-pervading Vasudev. So it's interesting. The Lord controls the senses. We don't control our own senses. So what is this coming back down to? This is coming back down to this point that we're not this body. It is very, very easy to say, I'm not this body. I'm realizing that more and more now because, being around advanced devotees, specifically Guru Dev, and reading the Bhagavad Gita, time and time again, we read the Bhagavad Gita. I think I've read it probably 20 times. But I'm really studying deeply this second, third, fourth, fifth chapter, which really deals with this how to act in the world without having any reaction, understanding where you fit in the equation, and really, really understanding that you're not the doer. You're not the doer of any activities. We always want to take credit for our activities. This is the problem of the materialistically conditioned person. Krishna says, Prakriti kriyamanani guna kamani Prakriti kriyamanani guna karma savasha ahankara vimudama kartahamiti manyate. Living entity bewildered by false ego thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality performed by the modes of material nature. Isn't that interesting? We think ourselves the doer of activities that are in actuality performed by the modes of material nature. So many times devotees, they identify with the body in three ways. Actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur brings this out in his commentary on the 11th canto regarding the song of the Avanti Brahman. How many know the story of the Avanti Brahman besides Lavanga? No? You never heard of the Avanti Brahman? The Avanti Brahman was a miser, very stingy man, ugly person. His family hated him, actually. He had a family and they hated him. He would treat them really horrible, treat them badly. He was very, very ugly toward his family. And this is the process of taking sannyas. No, it's a joke. It was a joke. He was very ugly toward his family. And at one point, they all just rejected him. Like some bad circumstances hit him, and they're just like, "Get out of here, you worthless scum!" They hated him, and he was, kind of like, "Man, this sucks." But he realized this is actually Krishna's mercy, and he became very happy. And then he quoted a very famous verse that I'm not going to quote right now. I don't know it, but he quoted a very famous verse about engaging the body, mind, and senses in the service of the Lord. And that verse is actually the Tridandi Sannyas mantra from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's what Tridandi Sannyasis chant with their Gayatri. An 8th mantra, which is the Sannyas mantra, which is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam regarding the song of the Avanti Brahman. Basically, the verse in English is, I will cross over the ocean of material nescience by engaging my body, mind, and words constantly in the service of Vasudeva. We can cross over the incrossable ocean of nescience by engaging our mind, body, and words in the service of Krishna. Daivi heshu gunamai amamaya durayaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. This material ocean, this ocean of misery, it's very difficult to overcome, but for one who surrenders unto me, he can easily cross beyond it. You can easily cross beyond the ocean of suffering by surrendering to Krishna. So we're always thinking I'm the doer, but in that section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments. There's a nice class by Bhaktivedanta Goswami on this, that the living entity identifies with the body in three ways. The first way the living entity identifies with the body is he thinks I'm the doer. I am the doer of activity. I did this, I did that. And so it's very easy to identify with things we do good. I did so much service. I led the kirtan. I distributed hundreds of books today. I chastised that rascal. There's so many things we can say. I'm the doer. Or we identify the other way. That's our getting puffed up. But then we also identify with our fallenness. I'm a very sad, fallen person. I'm a very lusty person. I'm a very conditioned person. And actually, the devotee, because we tend to try to be humble without understanding things properly, we tend to kind of reaffirm these facts in our mind. And actually, that's a low vibrational state. So the devotee, they become it's actually a struggle to overcome that kind of like bad self-talk. People are trying to imitate Krishnadas Kaviraj. Krishnadas Kaviraj was Uttama Adhikari. I'm lower than the worms in the stool. Whoever says my name is going to have so many severe consequences. Krishnadas Kaviraj is the author of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he's at a different platform. For the general devotee, we're trying to hear Bhagavad Gita, which means we're not thinking that I'm the doer. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I did this, I did that. This is kind of the consciousness of a materialistically conditioned person. I am the doer of these activities. I did. Or I did some offense. I did so many bad things. We identify with it. And then the other way we identify with the body is we identify with the quality of the mind. So that means I'm identifying as a very lusty person. I'm a very angry person. I'm a very enthusiastic person. I struggle a lot. We're identifying with this mental quality. And so we're reaffirming that. We're giving our false ego control of our mind. I'm thinking I'm this mind. And therefore I'm identifying with the quality of the mind. So lust may be there, anger may be there, sadness may be there, but the transcendental person is not going to identify with those qualities. Those are just qualities that appear and disappear in the mind. And then we identify with that which has happened to us. My trauma. That's a big one. People use it as an excuse nowadays. My trauma. Bring back my trauma. It's their whole meditation. It's always an excuse, my trauma. And some of them are not even traumatized, And that people have been through real trauma, and then they're like, they like killed people in Vietnam and they're functioning better than, my trauma. It's a real thing. It's an excuse to identify with the body and act like a fool. So we can't identify with what's happened to us, we can't identify with the quality of our mind, and we can't identify as the doer of our activities. All three of those are considered Maya, or being an illusion. So the Lord is in control. This is the idea that the Lord is in control of the senses, the Lord is in control of the mind, the Lord is in control of our activities. Upadrastad nimantascha bharta bhakta maheshvara paramat meti chapyukto dehismin purusha paraha. Upadrastad nimantascha. The Lord is the overseer and the permitter. So what does that mean? It's very important to understand. Upadrastad nimantascha. He's the overseer and the permitter. That means he's overseeing everything that's going on. And he's the permitter. So we have a desire to want to fulfill. The Lord is going to permit that desire. He's signing off on it. In other words, he's the actual doer. And in the case of the conditioned soul, he's fulfilling that desire via the energy of the three gunas. Fulfilling our desire through the gunas. Upadrastadi mantascha bharta, bhokta, maheshvara. He's the master, the enjoyer, and the supreme controller. Bharta Bhokta Maheshvara. Paramatmeti Chapyukto. He's known as Paramatma. He's in our heart. Dehismin Purusha Paraha. He's the other enjoyer within the body, the Dehi. He's the other enjoyer in this body. So there's the soul, there's the super soul, and there's the body. That's very important to understand. The Maya bodies, the impersonalists, they think there's just the super soul. And I am the super soul. I'm the Upadrasta Nimantascha Bharta Bhokta Maheshvara. I'm the controller. I'm the enjoyer. So though you see the Mayavadi, they're just a materialist, dressed up like a spiritual person. And I've seen with my own eyes now that they're doing so much Mayavadi sadhana, so much things like that, and they have all the same problems the materialist has. All the same problems. Sometimes their problems are in the mode of goodness. Sometimes their problems are in the mode of passion. Sometimes their problems are in the mode of ignorance. So what do problems in the mode of goodness look like? What does a materialistically conditioned person in the mode of goodness look like? Yes, we're building hospitals, we're feeding people, we're going to go do all this good work in the world. I'm a spiritual, I'm blissful, I'm just conditioned by the mode of goodness. I'm very much sattvic, very sattvic person. I even have knowledge I'm not this body, the highest level of sattva, but I'm acting on the material plane. I'm going to give everybody this knowledge of impersonal meditation. So you're sattvic. Why are you acting on the material plane? You don't have any spiritual activities because you're denying the existence of God. So in the mode of passion, it looks like I'm fighting with my mate generally. And I'm trying to get money so that I can enjoy my mate, enjoy many mates. Mode of passion, mode of ignorance is, where's the drugs? Where's the alcohol? So there's these types of happiness. But we haven't realized we're not this body because the Lord is the controller of the senses. So this is important to understand that we all have different natures. We can kind of think sometimes that a devotee should be this way, or a devotee should be that way, or a devotee should be this way. This is what a devotee should be like. This is what a person should be like. And they're not advanced because they're not renounced like me. They're not controlled like me. They're not doing the same activities as I am. This is kind of the consciousness of a conditioned soul. We all have a certain guna in karma according to body. According to our bodies, according to our quality, our gunas, and according to our karma, we get a certain type of body. Now, if we actually are on the spiritual platform, we understand that that person is not doing any of those activities. That's just the modes in action. They're guna and karma. They have guna in the mode of goodness. They have karma in the mode of goodness. Some people don't. So you find some devotees are going to be more geared toward leadership. Sometimes they may have to get involved in issues. Sometimes they may have to do kshatriya-like things. They may have to hurt others. They may have to stick it to someone. You never know. We have to beat a guy up on the 4th Ave for attacking the Harinam party. We can begin to think, oh, I did this, I did that. In the same way Arjuna, actually Yudhisthira came under illusion after the Battle of Kurukshetra. Very much illusion. Oh, so many people died. Literally 600 million people are dead because of me. Let's talk about a heavy state of mind. And then Bhishma Dev instructed him, no, you're not this body. Right? In the same way Arjuna was having some illusion at the beginning of the Mahabharata war, the Bhagavad Gita. He who thinks himself the slayer and he who thinks himself the slain are both not in knowledge, for the self slays not, nor is slain. So if we're not doing anything, if Krishna is the doer, everything's being done by Krishna, where do we fit in? What is our actual position? What is it that we should be cultivating? Is everything making sense here? Please stop me if it's not making sense, because I'm really trying to communicate a very particular point. What is it that we should be cultivating? Bhakti, yes, we're trying to be cultivating bhakti. So how is it we find ourselves in these precarious situations, even though we're cultivating bhakti? In that case, what should we do? Like in the case of Arjuna.
We're identifying with the body.
So in the case of Arjuna, for example, here he is in this battle. He has to kill all these pure devotees. Bhishma's a pure devotee. He's a Mahabhagavat. He's one of the 12 Mahajans. He's obviously very dear to Krishna. So is it not a Vaishnava aparad to kill a devotee? I didn't know that killing a devotee was a Vaishnava aparad, actually.
Krishna told him.
Okay. Here's Krishna's telling him to do it, where it's his duty to do it. It's his duty to act. And this is a very heavy circumstance. So how is this working here? We see that Krishna told him to do it, but take another circumstance. We find there's some confusion, there's some bewilderment. There's so many times in the Mahabharata where, devotees are apparently in conflict with each other. I take Bali, for example. Bali was at war with, the demigods. Or even better example, Vitrasura. Vitrasura is, this demon who's actually Chitraketu, a great devotee in his heart. And he has his whole life, his whole mission in life is to be killed by Indra, to fight Indra and be killed by Indra. Well, that's an offense to kill Indra. That's a demon. So how do we understand this here? Right. Only the body's dying. You can't hurt the soul. You can't hurt the body. But the instant we take credit, I did this, I'm an offender. Not saying we should go up and make offenses on this basis. I'm just saying in terms of understanding very bewildering circumstances, as like the Mahabharata or these circumstances we may find ourselves in. Every endeavor is covered by some smoke. Every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. So when we find ourselves in these bewildering circumstances, we have to remember, I'm not the doer here. And so what is it we're cultivating internally? We're just cultivating this prayer to Krishna. Krishna, whatever happens, I'm entangled in this material world. And I'm bewildered, I'm confused, but I'm yours. My only desire is to please you. My only desire is to love you. I may be forced to act in so many ways, but I'm not going to identify with that. And if by my actions I get punished, I accept that. And if by my actions you leave my consciousness, you cover me over and allow me not to remember you, I accept that also. Because you are my Lord and Master unconditionally, and you are the supreme controller of everything. Therefore, Krishna, I am yours. This is surrender. That's transcendental knowledge. That's understanding I'm not this body. As Krishna says, even if one is considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, if he is situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, he can easily cross beyond the ocean of darkness. I'm not this body. And therefore, we're cultivating a desire to act in devotional service. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We're cultivating a desire to be in devotional service. If by Krishna's grace, the Prabhupada says in this purport here, Supreme Lord is also known as Hrishikesh, master of the senses, which indicates that our senses and sense objects are formed by the Supreme Lord. As such, he can control our senses and out of his mercy, engage them in the service of the master of the senses. So once again, that's Krishna's mercy if we can engage in the service of Krishna. So we can always remain pure by cultivating the proper mental state of knowledge, meaning that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, I'm not the doer of my activities, I'm not the quality of my mind, I'm not the things that have happened to me. I'm unconditionally yours, Lord. So what if we make a mistake? How do we deal with that if we have a slip up in our devotional service? We act angry, we act, we go into Maya, we have a fall down, God forbid. What do we do? How do we understand that? Right? Because the immediate response is we want to get into lamentation. I'm not saying guilt. Prabhupada said guilt is a good thing. Little guilt is a good thing. That's part of our reaction. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in the Apichet Sudaracharo verse that even if one does Sudarachar, the most unimaginable, abominable activity, he's to be considered saintly. Why? Bhajate Mama Nanyabhak. Because he has Bhajate Mama Nanyabhak. I messed up, but I'm not going to forget Krishna. I'm always going to remain fixed in my devotion to Krishna. And therefore, the reaction for that may be guilt. We feel some guilt. That's what I should feel, Krishna. This is what I deserve to feel, Krishna. But I'm not this body. I still am your servant. Lord Chaitanya says, my dear Lord, I am your pure servant, but somehow or another I've fallen down into this ocean of nations. Please pick me up and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. So yeah, the body's going to feel guilt. The mind's going to feel guilt. The mind's going to feel fear. The mind may feel lamentation. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that remorse alone is the sinful reaction. It burns up all the sinful reactions of that sudarachar, of that horrendous activity. Bhajate mamananya bhakt. Therefore, sadhareva samanta viha, you're still a sadhu. Samyag vyavashato saha. Because you're properly situated in your determination. No matter what happens, you're never going to give up hearing and chanting about Krishna. You're never going to give up. You're never going to fall down. You're always going to get back up. The Guru Maharaj says sometimes that a fall down is only bad if you don't get back up. If you're just going to lay there, then the race is over. But if you get back up and you finish, then it's successful. So you have to just get back up. Samyak Devashato Saha. You're devoted. You're unflinching in your determination to serve Krishna. Understanding I'm not this body. I'm not this body. I'm the soul within the body. I'm not the doer of these activities. And therefore, I have no reason to lament. I have no reason to get into Maya and start thinking about myself, my body, my false ego. That's where illusion comes in. Oh, that. That's your false ego. Thinking about poor me. We see that sometimes. They're chanting Hare Krishna, they're dressing like devotees, they have tilak on, but it's just totally remorse, lament. I can't be joyful in my devotional service. Because when you're surrendered, you have to be joyful. You have to understand you're not this body if you're actually surrendered. Because if Krishna's in control, and I've completely accepted Krishna as the Lord and Master of everything, and whatever he does is best, I have full faith in that, and what is there lament about in any circumstance? So we understand lamentation is a symptom of illusion. Okay, I lamented for some time. I was in illusion. Now I'm going to be very sad because I got into illusion. Oh, then you realize you come back into knowledge. I'm lamenting because I was lamenting. Because I was in an illusion. Because all my false ego. I wanted to be seen as a pure devotee. I wanted to be seen like I wasn't in an illusion. So the pure devotee or the surrendered soul, there's so many times we're going to become bewildered. But still, we have to remain that Krishna is in control. And we're cultivating that desire, that intense desire in our heart to serve Krishna, which is what Vitrasura did. Even though he was acting as a demon, he was cultivating the desire to be Krishna's pure servant. And what happened was when Indra decapitated him with the lightning bolt, he went directly back to Godhead. So how do we realize this? We're not this body really clearly. What's the process? Yes, but Krishna says specifically sacrifice, yagya. That transcendental knowledge is developed by yagya. By performing of sacrifices, one realizes there's different types of sacrifices. Chanting Hare Krishna is the best and most recommended, but there's different types of sacrifices. And by performing sacrifices, we realize we're not this body. So even if one realizes they're not this body, if they don't have devotion to God, it doesn't do anything for them. Because God is the basis of the soul. You see? That when we actually realize we're not this body in full, when we actually have real knowledge, we automatically become devotees of God. So what's the symptom of someone who's not this body? Brahma bhuta prasanatma nasochati nakankshati sambasarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. Brahma bhuta prasanatma. His atma becomes prasan. He becomes joyful. He becomes, Prabhupada says, always jolly. He becomes always jolly. Nasochati nakanchati. He doesn't lament. He doesn't desire. Samasarveshu bhuteshu. He sees all living entities equally. Mad bhaktim labate param. In that state, he attains pure love for me. So only in that state do we attain this pure love. We have to develop this knowledge because God is the basis of the soul. Bahunam janmanam ante gyanavan mam prapadyate Once again, Krishna says, after many, many births and deaths, one who actually realizes I'm not this body, mam prapadyate, he engages in my devotional service. Because he understands, not only am I not this body, I'm part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, he can engage in this devotional service. So the basis of the soul is God, and therefore the soul's meant to engage in the service of God. And I'll read this verse, and I'll quote one more verse, and we'll end it. So we're talking, here's these verses here that I quoted this verse. So how do you learn how to do sacrifice? This is a very beautiful part of the Bhagavad Gita. We'll just read this part, starting here. So there's so many different ways to perform sacrifice. There's so many activities we can do. What does Krishna say? How do you do it properly? What's the way to do sacrifice properly? How do you learn to do sacrifice? How do you learn to act in such a way that you'll realize you're not this body? The 4th chapter is all about these different sacrifices. Then Krishna says, just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively. Render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall down again into such illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living entities are part of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine. Even if you were considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross the ocean of miseries. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all the reactions to material activities. So by this knowledge, there's no reaction. So what he's saying, by realizing you're not this body, there's no reaction. Prabhupada says, perfect knowledge of self and super self and of their relationship is compared herein to fire. This fire not only burns up all the reactions to impious activities, but also the reactions to pious activities, turning them to ashes. There are many stages of reaction. Reaction in the making, reaction fructifying, reaction already achieved, and reaction a priori. But knowledge of the constitutional position of the living entity burns everything to ashes. When one is in complete knowledge, all reactions, both a priori and a posteriori, are consumed. In the Vedas, Bhakti Aranyaka Upanishad, it is stated, one overcomes both pious and impious reactions of work. Then Prabhupada says, in this world, or Krishna says, in this world there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism, and one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within himself in due course. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge. And having achieved it, he quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. This is how we get peace in our heart. And so Krishna says, if you want that transcendental, or Sutta Goswami says, if you want that transcendental knowledge immediately, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janaya Yashu Vairagyam Gyanam Chiyada Haitukam. That simply by Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, by performing Bhakti Yoga to Vasudev, Jana means birth, Jana Yat Yashu Vairagyam Gyanam. One develops causeless knowledge and detachment. Causeless knowledge and detachment. So the instant we surrender to Krishna completely, you're in control of everything. Do what you will with me. If we actually develop that, do whatever you want. My desire is simply to serve you, and cultivate that desire. Let the internal potency take over. On one side, the materialist is controlled by the modes. The spiritualist, he's controlled by Krishna's internal potency, by Radharani. One's controlled by Durga, one's controlled by Radha. In either case, we're not the doer, but we are the desirer. We are desiring. We are cultivating this desire and developing knowledge. So, any questions, comments, criticisms? I will.
So, if we're not the doer, and really Krishna is the one that allows us to have realization or not, then why, I can see some people saying, well, why should I try then? If Krishna wants me to have the knowledge, he'll give it to me, so why should I try?
Well, once again, you got to analyze everything. Do you desire to try? If you desire that knowledge, Krishna will allow you. You'll do it. If you desire, Krishna will guide you to a spiritual master. He'll guide you to these books. He'll give you the impetus to read them. He'll give you the determination to do service nicely. He'll give you the determination to chant nicely, if you desire it. But if you're thinking, why should I try? I mean, you're not even trying. Krishna is doing. You're getting exactly what you want. You're getting exactly what you deserve. Yeyetam mam prapadyante tam statava bhajamyaham. Right? Everybody, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So when we have that desire, I'm going to do this, Krishna will allow us to read. We're praying, Guru Mukhya Padmavakya, Chidate Koryakya. We're praying, please, I want to hear my word, my consciousness be purified by the words emanating from your lotus mouth. So we have no power to read or understand anything on our own. Krishna has to empower us to read. Krishna has to empower us to study. So why should we try? We have the desire to try and we'll do it. But if we don't have that desire, because if we're saying, why should I try? That means I don't really want it.
I guess I'm just thinking in terms of preaching. You know, we tell people to read the books. We tell people to do these things.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a deeper, we're a little bit deeper here. You know, we're a little bit something that maybe not so easy for a grant. We want people to read the books. We tell them to read the books. We're encouraging them to read the books. We're trying to invoke that desire in them. We're trying to invoke that desire in them. When that desire is there, they'll do it. How else are they going to do it? Krishna says, Tesham salatam yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam. He's giving you the intelligence anyways. So he'll give you the intelligence to read the books or to hear from the sadhu or to do however, you know, you're going to attain this transcendental knowledge. Krishna will give you that intelligence when you desire it. So we're trying to give people knowledge so that they can change their desires. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Kantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare